Hey, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Ultimate Affiliate Marketing. I am your host, as always. It's Paul Motley here, and today I have a very special guest. Now, I was talking to him just a second ago, and I had to admit I was a little bit of a fanboy. I've been following his stuff for a long time now. Welcome, everybody. It's Mike Cooch.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Mike, it's been awesome, man. And I'm sorry about for those that don't know, we did have some technical difficulties. And I thought, do you know what? I could just let it ride. But then I thought, no, my listeners deserve better. They've got to get decent audio on this thing. So we're trying again. We're going for it again. So I'm going to have to repeat myself a little bit here, Mike. But just explain to everybody sort of like, what was the main point? When did you start going from like being offline business to an online business?
Yeah. As I was saying, that's a fun little walk down memory lane for me. So I was building my IT management company. I provided IT management to small businesses. And one of the core ways that I had built that business was using direct mail campaigns for my prospecting. And I had learned that from Dan Kennedy. I'd been a big Dan Kennedy fan. And, Dan Kennedy was a huge proponent of people building an information business no matter what they were doing. You know, he said, look, if you're in the IT business or the real estate business or whatever you're doing, if you're having success, build an information business as well, because you'll probably make more money from that than you do from your core business. So I started in the information marketing space while I was still building that IT services company. And then I went to one of Dan Kennedy's events, and up on the stage at his event, he brought up this young man who he wanted to, kind of showcase at the event as somebody that was leading the way in some of this digital marketing stuff. And that young man was Ryan Deiss. And Ryan Deiss and I got to know him pretty well. I joined his first War Room Mastermind when he launched that and became a member of that. And that was a big step into the whole, digital world for me.
That's incredible. I mean, it's great that you mentioned Ryan Deiss, because that's someone else that I've been following for a long time now. And if people see through the lines, they probably see a lot of his teachings and what he does in everyone else's marketing as well. So I mean, that's pretty cool, man. As far as like in affiliate marketing goes, I mean, do you strictly stuck to your own stuff, or are you kind of like affiliate marketing at the same time?
Yeah, I definitely do both. I mean, I started creating my own products. Like that was definitely my start in the industry. But it's been very natural for me over the years to also be an affiliate marketer, because there's just so many complementary products and services that I could offer that aren't my own, but it makes sense to offer them and refer them and make money from it. I haven't done very much, pure affiliate marketing as I consider it, where like I'm just literally, starting from scratch, looking for a product to promote and then building like a funnel around it or something like that. I have done some of that, but that's just not been the core of my business.
No, I appreciate that, man. I mean, there's, the affiliate marketing world these days is rife with all sorts of offers. There's people coming at you every single day with this offer, that offer. I mean, how do you pick what you're going to promote?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right. There's so much in this space. There's so much noise. And even, I say noise and I don't even mean to talk down about it. There's just a lot out there, and there's a lot of different angles and approaches you can take. And so it's definitely important that, you kind of pick one and follow it and make sure it's something that, makes sense to you and feels good to you. For me, I think picking a market that you really, honestly, like can give a shit about and can imagine caring for that audience for the next, 5 years or so anyway. I think that that's really important, because I think that that's going to make a huge difference in your ability to understand and put together, good offers for that market. But I also think it's critical now that you realize that all those audiences of people out there, like they have infinite choice now. And it's so easy to find the right people and communities and products that will lead them to where they want to go. And so they don't have to stick with you. And so if you're out there doing something that you don't really believe in, like you don't really care about, you're not really interested in yourself, I think it's going to be super hard to compete with the people out there that are in your market that really do care and they are really into those products and services and into that audience. So I think it's got to be something that you care about and you're going to be interested in for years to come.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, do you incentivize people when you're sending out affiliate offers, or do you find that your market or your audience itself is warm enough that they will just convert anyway?
You know, I would say that if I have a good relevant bonus that I can add on top of an offer, I definitely that always helps conversion, always. So if I've got something good that I can add extra value, then I always try and make sure and do that. But you know, if an offer is really good, it will stand on its own. And so there are oftentimes offers where I feel like, hey, I'm not gonna, you know, mix the message at all. I'm just gonna let this offer stand on its own and let it do its thing, and it converts great.
No, that's cool. What's your whole take on the high ticket versus low ticket thing that's going around?
I think that I think what's very interesting about this industry is that you know, hype is kind of created around everything, right? And so when that's the case, you got to be careful not to just get caught up in the hype. The reality is, to me, low ticket offers work and serve a purpose. High ticket offers work and serve a purpose. And you should have the right price and packaging for what it is that you're delivering and the value that you're delivering, and the business model that you want to run. So if you're going to provide more support, more hand holding, more sophisticated tools, software, whatever it is, then have a higher price point. That makes sense. But I think, you know, to me, the ideal scenario is that you have a full offer funnel that's got, you know, low ticket stuff, high ticket stuff. I always try and make sure I've got, you know, kind of a complete lineup in there.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool because, like you said, I always refer it to like shiny object syndrome, because when people are seeing stuff on Facebook, and a lot of times people are just posting results or commissions that they're getting, and sometimes they're like completely, you know, they're massive commissions. They're not like, oh, I got a $15 commission. It's like I got a few $100 commissions, or I got $1,000 commissions, and that kind of like works a little bit around the whole Mike Dillard way of magnetic sponsoring, because then people start asking them how they did it and stuff. But those things can come and go very quickly. So being passionate about what you're selling, I guess, is paramount, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think that, you know, anytime you're looking at the big commissions and the big kind of short-term wins that somebody's posting about, it's always so important to look at it in the context of the big picture, and how long have they been around, and how long are they doing that, and how long is that opportunity going to last? Because, oh my gosh, this industry is full of stuff that makes a bunch of money for 6 months and then it dies, and, you know, there's a broke, you know, promoter behind it. Like, you know, look at people who've been in the business for the long term, who actually make a living from it, and see how they operate. I think that's very important.
Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, you've only got to look on some of the affiliate sites like either Munchai or JVZoo and see all the offers coming out almost daily, and it's probably so easy to get took along that train, I guess. Now, if you went back and I really don't hate to ask the question, but you know, like sometimes you want interviews and people say, "Oh, what would you tell yourself 5 or 10 years ago?"
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a tough question to answer, but put yourself in someone's shoes rather than asking that particular question. If you put yourself in someone's shoes, they're just online, they've started making a few sales. What would you say to them if they were looking to scale up?
It's actually, I think it's actually a pretty straightforward one for me to answer, which is I would aggressively at all times focus on building my list. And when I say list, I really like the word community more. I mean, it's definitely not just a numbers game. It's the relationship that you have with the people that are on that list, which I do think makes, that community more of an appropriate word. But in this business, size absolutely matters. I mean, size matters. If you have, 10 times the audience size that I do, there's a very good chance that you're going to be making a lot more money than I am. It's just reality. So I would be doing everything I could at all times to try and grow that audience as big as I possibly could.
No, I get it. I mean, the last couple of years, and it's kind of like almost stagnated a little bit at the moment, is the big buzz was to build Facebook groups. I mean, if you had the choice, what would you rather have, a large Facebook group or a large email list?
Email list for sure.
I knew you were going to say that. That was a leading question.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, I know. So what do you think to all the, do you think there's still a place in the world for like people to build messenger bot lists because of the open rates, or do you think they should really stick with their email list?
Oh, no, I think I'm a big believer in building as many different channels as you can to communicate with your customers. I'm also a big believer in building channels that you own and have control of as much as possible, though. So, Facebook Messenger to me is a risky proposition because Facebook can always just change the rules of the game, and they're known to do that. That being said, it's still a very powerful channel. I think it should just be, taken in context of the rest of the channels that you're developing. If you said, that's the only thing I'm building is a Facebook Messenger list, I would say I think that's a big, big strategic mistake.
No, that's cool. No, that's totally right. And I've tried to impress that on people so much within the podcast episodes that we've done about building your own list. Now, talk to me about your sort of like main proposition, if you like. I mean, you have your own site, don't you? Which is if I'm right, it's the Digital Marketing Labs. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. Digitalmarketinglab.io. Yep.
Yeah. So where did that come across, and what sort of things can people learn from it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's evolved over time for sure. So that brand, and I've got two real brands that I'm focused on. There's digitalmarketinglab.io, and then there's Leverage, which is just lvrg.com. Digital Marketing Lab, I'm really focused on helping service providers scale and be more profitable. So if you are an agency or a freelancer or a consultant, I've got a lot of history in my career in building scalable service businesses and then being able to sell them. I've done acquisitions in that space. And so I've just got a lot of history and experience in that space that I feel like I can really help people. And so that's what that brand is really focused on. And then the Leverage brand is really, to me, what I'm most excited about in my career now and most excited going forward, I know for years to come, is helping entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs build online businesses. I just think that it's so critical now that people have those skill sets and understand how to do it. And so that brand is more broadly about building, an online business, and primarily in information marketing, affiliate marketing, that type of space. So those are the two different brands and how I focus on.
No, that's cool, man. And actually, from personal experience, I mean, I remember listening to some of your stuff, whether it be a training video or a webinar or anything like that, and And what was really cool was like when we hooked up to get this interview sorted out, as I realised you had a podcast of your own. So
Yeah.
how's that been going? How long has it been going? And you know, what are you trying to get to? You know, what are you trying to achieve with that podcast itself? And obviously, feel free to let everybody know what it is.
Yeah, that is so. It's called Leverage FM, or the Leverage Podcast, and it's I host on Anchor, which that's been a cool service for me. They really have made it easy to start and host a podcast, and so that's something that I did. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Like, I think I've had it for a couple of years now. But it's funny. I say that because, and I kind of asking out loud, like, have I really had it that long? Maybe even a few years, because it's not ever been anything that I've really focused on, like you're doing, I think doing a real good job of, is like, you're focusing on building this up and using it as a platform, I think. And that's not anything that I've done. I've always used it primarily for me as a way to just get some of the thoughts and stuff out of my head, one, and two, kind of sharing my experiences as I'm going along as an entrepreneur. And then two, using it primarily as content to nurture people who have already found their way to me. So I have a lot of people on my list that I'll hear from them, after they got on my list, that they then found a podcast episode and then ended up binge consuming, a whole bunch of episodes on my podcast, and then realize, then I felt real confident in buying these products from you. And so I think it's a great way to deepen your relationship with your audience. And I definitely think it's also a very good way to grow an audience as well. I had just not personally been focused on that. That is more of my plan here going forward, but it's just not been my focus so far. But I really enjoy it. I enjoy the medium, and like I said, kind of the relationship that I think it creates with people is different than receiving an email. And so I think it's got a ton of value.
Yeah, totally appreciate it. And I've actually been listening to a few episodes myself. And would you be surprised that the first episode that I found was August the 30th, 2017? So you're almost coming up on 3 years now.
Man, that's wild. That really is wild.
That's crazy. Like, time flies when you're having fun, but I totally get where you're coming from. We're talking about getting things out of your mind and onto that. And what's interesting is that during your own day, you probably have like 1,000 thoughts, and being able to speak it instead of write it sometimes can be a faster way of getting it out there. So yeah, I mean, do you tend to like push people to your podcast, or is that something that you're looking to do going forward? So like you might say, okay, well, new episode's out and we're going to send it out to an email list and try and get more people interacting that way.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I'm starting to do more now. And then, using like the little audiograms, which I know you do as well, to create a different format to be able to share them and promote them online. That's something that I've started doing. And I think that, I just think that, again, like the more different angles that you can introduce yourself to your audience, the more success you're going to have getting through to them and building a relationship with them, which ultimately, leads to people buying from you.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously different touch points, isn't it? So
yeah,
if you can, and people consume content in different ways. Some people will spend the whole day on Facebook. Other people will enjoy watching videos on YouTube. Other people will enjoy like people that do audio books or listen to podcasts and that. So you can tap into different sectors of your audience, I guess. And I don't know about you, but I always feel like if I'm talking out loud, then sometimes the intent and the sincerity in which you're putting those words out there can be so much more different. Because I don't know about you, but have you ever been where you might send a text message and that text message could be read in so many different connotations, and it's better to have a voice behind it, right?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it is, I think, one of the things that was really eye-opening for me personally in starting to take the podcast more seriously is my own personal behavior. Like I had never really been a podcast listener until probably maybe about a year and a half ago now. And there was a handful of business podcasts that I started listening to when I would go to the gym. I like to exercise. I like to go to the gym. And so every time I would go to the gym and exercise, that was the easiest thing for me to consume, was listening to a podcast. They have TVs up and stuff in the gym and stuff like that, but you couldn't really hear them or whatever. So I would just have a podcast in, and I started realizing how much of a connection I started feeling like I had to the people that were hosting these podcasts. Like I realized, like, wait a minute, this is a much more personal connection I feel like I have than I have with anybody who's just sending me an email. It just felt totally different. So I do think that clarity of message and the fact that they can hear your voice and the tonality of your voice and all that type of stuff, and you can be speaking into their ear while they're doing other things, while they're driving, while they're working out, while they're out on a hike, whatever it is. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. And it actually reminds me of something that I remember reading, or I might even listen to actually, from Brian Tracy, when he was talking about always be learning and doing all that sort of stuff. And he referenced his own term, which was automobile university.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? You must
remember that.
Yeah. Where you could actually, during your daily commute, you could actually be listening to, whether it be audiobooks or podcasts or anything like that. So I think there's only 24 hours in the day, and we've all got the same amount of time, and it's up to us how we spend it. But there's always that time where it's kind of like almost like a dead time, where you might be, like, say, at the gym, you might be on a hike, you might be out on your bike or commuting and that. So rather than sort of listening to the fuzz, which is whether it be like news, whether it be like music or anything like that, you could actually be consuming content which is going to push you forward. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you're getting the podcast out there, and I'm just like spinning through. You've got literally almost, I don't know, must be like close to 100 episodes out there, I think.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Do you ever listen back?
No, never. That's interesting. No, I never do. I just put them out there and hardly even think about them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Personally, I don't like the sound of my own voice. So,
yeah, I hear you.
And it's a strange one, and you think, gosh, do I really sound like that?
I know.
But also as well, I think as human beings, we can be overcritical, so it kind of opens up the avenues that we can start criticizing ourselves and beating ourselves up over it. I think, I don't know about you. I mean, do you tend to prep a lot before your podcast episodes, or you just go for it?
I would say almost no prep at all. Yeah, it's more kind of stream of consciousness for me.
Yeah, totally the same way. And obviously when I started doing this again, so I don't know if you know, but I actually started this podcast back in November 2019. Queued up a bunch of people to interview, which was exciting, but a pain at the same time, trying to get people different time zones and getting them booked and getting it working. And I told the story before where I was out in Spain in a villa there, and the halfway through one of the interviews, the power went off. So literally the whole block, the power went down, and I was praying. Literally, we were like 35, 40 minutes into the interview, and I was praying how, but somehow Zoom actually still kept the recording of it, so I was still able to use that. Otherwise, I was just pulling my hair out because it kept doing it off and on.
Oh wow!
That's lucky. Yeah, progressing on, early 2020, when those interviews stopped, and the old shiny object started coming along, and I had another project I wanted to work on, the podcast kind of stopped. And when I look back on my stats, I was still getting a few downloads each day, but it really dipped. It really dipped. And then I was reading the Traffic Secrets from Russell Brunson, and he said that if you do or publish every day for a year, you'll never have to worry about money again. So this is my own personal quest to prove that theory.
That's awesome. I love it.
And it is crazy. I think I'm almost like I must be approaching like 60 days straight now. But what you were saying there about no prep, and a lot of times I might latch on to one or two things that's happened that day, or something that I've read or listened to, and then my mind will just start going, and that's what comes out on the podcast. So yeah, I don't know if that's the same for you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm constantly, I guess, while doing my business, I also like to be thinking about business and kind of trying to analyze and study what's going on and extract lessons at the same time. And so when I'm doing that, or when I'm interacting with my community and hearing the things that they're challenged with, like there's always just something that comes up pretty naturally. And what I've taken to, it's interesting. I think in the whole podcast space, it's challenging to carve out your own, approach that's going to be differentiated in the market. And I think in particular, in the entrepreneurship space, there's been a lot of, the interview approach, right? So there's lots of interviewing going on, and not that that's a bad thing at all to do that as well. It's just, I do think that, maybe the approach of that, more stream of consciousness, hey, here's what I'm experiencing, here's what I'm learning, I think could have a lot of value to people as well. That's just a little bit different approach. So, I try and have a mix of things like that. I'm actually just starting to do more of the, scheduling interviews and stuff like that, because I've never really done that. But I think that having that mix, I think, has value.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's what we've been trying to do ourselves as well, because it's all very well just like pumping out, day after day after day yourself. But sometimes it's to keep people interested as well. It's good to have others that you're going to interview. So rather than just stick a show where you're just acting as the reporter and you're not actually getting anything out there yourself, in my opinion, if you're just doing the reporting stuff, then people aren't going to get to know you. They're going to get to know who you're interviewing.
Yep. I think that's definitely true.
Yeah. So going forward, obviously, if anything comes up, I mean, they're going to go, well, why should I buy from you? Because I should be going and buying from you, the guys that you've been interviewing off.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's a fun mix. And do you pay any attention to like charts and stuff, or anything else like that as far as your podcast goes, or you just think, okay, no, I'm doing good, I'm fine?
I haven't, like I said, up until just very recently, I hadn't even made the decision to start approaching it more strategically. I have made that decision now. And so I'm definitely just now kind of digging into some of the tools and resources that are out there. And it's an interesting space because it's much more blind than the rest of the digital marketing world, right? Like it's still harder to get real good data on podcasts compared to the rest of the digital universe. So, but that's becoming more available, more transparent as more providers get into the game. And, Spotify's challenge, Apple and stuff like that. It's an interesting space, but I am trying to take more of a strategic approach with my content, both on the podcast and YouTube, doing a little bit more research on topics and stuff like that first, and having a mix of content that is more intentionally there to either grow my audience or to convert more sales or whatever it is. I do want to do a better job of that here going forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think I was literally thinking about this earlier on today, is that, if you ever want to see how good people are doing to a point on like YouTube, you can go and see how many subscribers they've got. You can see how many video views they've had. You can see each video, how many downloads or views of each video. But on the podcast side of things, you're completely blind. The only person's stats really that you've got to go on is your own.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
Sometimes you look at the charts and you think, they must be doing good because they're in the top 200. But the top 200 could mean that they're getting like 100 or 200 downloads a month. You just don't know.
Right.
So yeah, I think the opportunity for people, if they're thinking that they want to grow their own audience and then trying to push them to offers, if we go back to like the affiliate marketing stuff, then for me, it's a blue ocean still. It's still a space where you can actually not dominate, but you can build your own sort of like corner of the world, if you like.
Definitely. And I think it's so important that people realize that you don't have to dominate to make a very good living in affiliate marketing or information marketing. I mean, if you develop a list of a handful of 1,000 people who really tune in and listen to you and listen to your advice and your guidance, you can make a really good living and have a really nice flexible lifestyle from doing that. So you don't have to be this massive brand to be able to do that. I think it's really important that people realize that.
Yeah, no, that's right. What's the old saying there? Like, is it like a couple of hundred true fans, or is it 1,000 true fans?
Yeah, it's 1,000 True Fans was the book that really sparked that, and I think it's right on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then basically, by what you're doing there is you've got your online presence, you've got your podcast there as well. So you're talking directly to people, so people can hear your voice, they can hear how you're putting the words across, and they can also hear your thoughts and get value from that. So therefore, they're more likely to, and it's the old phrase again, know, like, and trust you. So when you put something out, and because it's coming from you, you've almost got that authority that people are going to listen to and think, yeah, Mike said this is good, I should get it.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a great position to be in, right?
It is. It's an incredible position to be in. It's still amazing to me every day. Kind of like it must have just been really amazing to Dan Kennedy back in the day, like when he was so advocating for people to build their own audience and to sell their own knowledge. He was such an advocate for that, still is, but more and more people are doing it now, but it still shocks me every day that I meet really smart, talented people who don't get it and aren't doing that, because it's literally, to me, like the best kind of security that you can possibly have is to have your own audience of people who are tuning into you, that you have their attention and their trust. Like, if you have that, there's almost no way you're going to go broke. There's almost no way you're going to go hungry, right? And then it's just upside from there.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, yeah. We got a little deep there, Mike, for a minute, didn't we?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a step back a second. But the psychology behind it is immense. And it still gets me to this day where I see people in groups. And I think that for me, there seems to be the sort of like the beginners level where people just see there's an opportunity but really don't know what to do, and then they're almost crying out for people to help them. Then you've got this like mid-level where a lot of people will shy away from helping people because they don't want to give away all their secrets on their successes. And then you've got the so-called the guru, big influencer levels, which never talk directly to the people which are just starting out, because it's just not how they do it. They just, they've gone past that. They can't answer 200 messages a day. They can't get on Zoom calls for 50 or 60 people every day to show them how to connect an email address or how to build a landing page or how to craft an email itself. And there does seem to be like a little gap in the market where probably like some mid-level help would go a long way, rather than just selling big programs out there which teach people on a higher level. I think there's definitely a gap for sort of like the mid-range. I don't know. Maybe it's just what I see. I don't know about what you see on what you're looking at.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. I think it's interesting to look at the people who definitely have big audiences that have continued to put out some very, very like basic entry level content. I think have done very well because that, like who I'm thinking of, who comes to mind to me is like Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn, has got a big audience and a big name. But he's always had lots of very good content. Like, here's how to put up a WordPress, website, and, how to edit your website and things like that, like basic content. But that basic content reaches a huge market because there is such a huge market of people who are, like you said, they just need help with, hey, how do I get started with this stuff? That I think that, there's a big opportunity there. And look, right now, I mean, the world right now that we're living in has changed and is changing so dramatically, and opening people's eyes to, oh shit, I better have a way of making a living that doesn't require me to go physically do a thing. And so I think a lot more people are starting to look for that type of stuff. What is an autoresponder? And how do I hook that up to whatever? Like that's definitely a big opportunity.
I know, and it sounds awful now because obviously yourself are well versed in all that stuff, and myself as well, being online for a few years now. But trying to it's difficult because you still get people out there, and you're almost talking like they should know what you're talking about because you know it so well. And it's connecting with those people when, like you said about, you can just throw them into your autoresponder and you can send them out a series of emails for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and you can tag them and you can do that, and they'll look at them out and they'll go, what do you mean tag? What do you mean segment? What do you mean automation? And retargeting and all this fun stuff. And I think the basic 1, 2, 3 blocks out there, like I said, in today's world, when people are actively looking out, it's still a big deal out there. And I think, like, I don't know about you, but I still see people like putting out videos which are literally very, very basic, and we almost forget that there's a need for that basic information to go out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's a big opportunity for somebody to do that well, for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned Pat Flynn there, because watching his videos about putting a podcast together was actually how I technically put this podcast together.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, it was literally, he said, right, now you do this, now you do that, now you do this, now you do that. And all of a sudden I had a podcast, and it was like, wow, I can't believe it went out. That's great.
Yeah. No, it's totally true. And I bet you there are literally thousands of people who would give him credit for that. And that's the power, right? That's really powerful.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Mike, it's been so cool having you on and just being able to like just relax a little bit and have a chat and not get too structured and everything. I know there has to be some sort of formality to these things. So I totally appreciate you coming on, man. It's been awesome for me.
Absolutely. Same here. It's been lots of fun. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's cool. That's cool. So I'm just going to remind everybody now that Mike does have his own podcast. I wholly recommend you have a listen to it. I'm going to drop a link onto the show notes, but if you go to lvrg.fm, you should be able to get onto the podcast from there. And once again, Mike, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I don't know, does that actually work? Because if it doesn't,
that's a great plug, wasn't it?
I would say go to lvrg.com and you'll see a link there for my podcast, and you can find it all there, because I'm not even sure if that works. So I need to register that if it doesn't.
Yeah, you should really check that out, because I'm literally holding my phone up right now, right? I'm on your podcast, and big letters there is lvrg.fm.
Oh man, I really need to go register that, because that definitely does not go to my site.
Oh man. Okay, just think of all the millions you've lost out on.
Millions, yeah. You just made me a lot of money.
Yeah, that's it. Just do it quickly, so no one else goes and sneaks under the radar and grabs it off you before anyone else does.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks a lot, Paul. I appreciate you having me on.
No, it's awesome, man. Awesome. I appreciate it.